This special meeting of the Judson Board of Trustees is hereby called to order at 6:30 p.m. I am very pleased that you've taken time to join us this evening. As the Judson Board of Trustees, we are here to set goals and policies and oversee the management of the district. We are responsible for approving budgets, contracts, personnel appointments, and to listen to reports from the superintendent. We are not here to make administrative or management decisions pertaining to the daily operations of the district. This is the responsibility of the superintendent. In compliance with the State Government Code on Open Meetings, tonight's agenda has been appropriately posted. This is a meeting in public, not a meeting of the public. As our guest, you are welcome to observe and listen. These proceedings are being video and audio recorded and will become part of Judson's permanent legal record. In order that the tape adequately reflects these proceedings, please silence your mobile devices and refrain from talking while others are speaking. Since it is legally mandated that these proceedings are recorded accurately, I may have to ask for order periodically should I notice that disruptions are interfering with our recording capabilities. Once again, I extend to each of you a sincere welcome from the entire school board. Thank you for your interest in Judson ISD. We've established a quorum, and I will call roll. Mr. Salinas?
Present.
Ms. Pashal?
Present.
Mr. Macias?
Present.
Mr. LaFoyle?
Here, present.
Mr. Flores?
Present.
And I'm Melinda Salinas, and we also have our superintendent, Dr. Carl Montoya.
Present.
And we will start with item number 2, review of fiscal year 2017 budget information.
Madam President, members of the board, again, I remind you that we're going to pull item 6 from closed session. That will not be presented at this time because the attorneys needed a little more time. That'll be presented at a future meeting with specific information, but pull it today. At this time, again, this is a process that districts use to look at budgets and to estimate, what needs are and where we need to be in the future and these types of things. And of course, it'll involve other meetings. This is not the only meeting. The one negative in this whole picture is we still don't have a total picture from the state. We have ideas as to funding from the state, but we don't have anything specific. But in the meantime, it's important that we go ahead and proceed. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Elizondo.
Thank you, Dr. Montoya. Board members, tonight we're going to kind of do this a little bit. Well, it's similar to what you have seen in the past. The first part of the meeting, which is discussing the 2017 budget, which is the budget we're in this year, is to kind of give you a refresher and kind of remind you where the monies go and where we spend the majority of our money. There are 3 funds that the board has to approve a budget for: the general operating fund, the child nutrition fund, and the debt service fund. And I'll go into those in a little more detail as we go forward. And in a few minutes after we finish the 2017 review, then we'll start talking a little bit about next year's budget preparation for 2018. So there are some legal requirements that the budget has to be prepared in accordance with, and they're listed here in your PowerPoint. I'm not going to sit here and read all of these to y'all, but if you have any questions or you mark something when you had it in your board book, please stop me and ask me, and I'll be happy to try to address it. The only thing that we do need to, I just want to emphasize, and y'all know this, is that we have to adopt a budget by the end of June so that we can have a budget to open our doors on July the 1st. As long as we keep that in mind and we do that, the rest of it should be okay. Kind of tell you the budget process, this budget cycle kind of shows you what different phases the budget goes through and who all participates. And typically, and just in a nutshell, everybody in the district, all stakeholders participate in the development of the budget for the school district. Again, these are the 3 funds that the board has to adopt budgets for. We do have other funds that we have, but these are the only 3 that the board is legally required to adopt budgets for. We're going to start with a general operating fund. This is the fund, obviously, that we spend the majority of our money on salaries. For all the payroll gets paid out of here, for all of our teachers, custodians, everybody that you can imagine, except for child nutrition workers. And revenues for this particular fund comes from the state, local sources as well. And so we're going to start going through some of these slides. Again, I'm not going to go through every one of these years. I'm just going to look a little bit at year 2016-17. And you can just tell here that, local funds are 84 million and change. State funds are about 89 million, which shows you that we're about the same, but state is paying a little bit more than local. And then we have other sources, about $5.2 million. And then we receive TRS on behalf. And again, just as a reminder, the TRS on behalf is like Social Security, the matching portion of FICA. that the employers in the private sector pay, but in school districts, it's TRS on behalf. The district has to book this entry. You'll see this entry on the revenue side, and when we talk about expenditures, you'll see it there for an equal amount as well. So total revenue for this year is budgeted, as of right now, is about $188 million for the general operating fund. This kind of shows you the same information, but more in a graphical form, just to show you again that the state sources are about 48% of our revenue budget, 45% come from local sources, and local, we're talking about property tax collections, both from residential and commercial properties. And then again, you see what's the federal and other resources and the TRS on behalf. The federal, that largest portion that's in there, has to do with the SHARS program, which are the services that we provide to students that have disabilities. We're allowed to claim reimbursements from the federal government for some of those services that we provide for both MAC and SHARS, and that's the largest portion that's represented in that 3%. On the expense side, you'll see that salaries are about $164.8 million for the 16-17 year. That's what we have budgeted. Then professional services, 16.8. There's other numbers there you can see as well. As we go through, for the entire year for the expense side, as of right now, we have budgeted about $199.5 million, so almost $200 million on the general operating side for expenditures. In graph form, it kind of shows you, the other day you all heard, I think, a comment from somebody who addressed the board that our payroll was at 60% or 62%, something like that. I'm not really sure where that figure came from, but the portion that we spend from general operating funds every year for as long as I can remember has been in the high 70, like the 78 to 82%, somewhere in there. And then we've continued to maintain that amount so for payroll costs. And you can see that the other larger expenditure, the next one is the contracted services. There we include things like the utility costs that we have, which is I think it's in excess of $3 million. And then, of course, other consultants that we use as well for special ed services, I think is one of the other major ones. If you all have any questions, please stop me anytime.
Mr. Elizondo?
Yes, ma'am.
So 78% is a good, 78% is a average, it's a good.
Sure.
What's
When you attend TASB classes and they talk to you about payroll costs and what a target number should be or a benchmark should be for your school district, they usually reference the number 80%. And that's as long as you don't exceed 80 or you're kind of in that ballpark, you're plus or minus a little bit, you're okay. Sure. Again, this is the general operating fund broken down a little bit more. This is our biggest expense, again, is payroll. So what I like to do is give you a little more information about payroll, that in our salaries and wages, it's about $139 million. And our benefits, which include health insurance as the biggest component, we're spending about $12.6 million. And then TRS, the TRS program has over the years struggled with maintaining things like their health insurance for the active care employees and different other things in the program. So what they've been doing for a number of years is passing on a lot of the costs that the state would bear to the school districts, to the members, to the districts who hire their members. So that number at one point, I think for our district was $500,000, and you can see over the past number of years, it has grown tremendously, where it's now $4.6 million a year that we're contributing to help towards the health insurance, to help towards the different benefits that are offered by TRS. And of course, we want to keep that program successful and viable because that is what our teachers retire on when they do retire, but it is costing the school district quite a bit of money. This is in addition to what our employees pay out of their paychecks, the contributions that they pay. This is just the district expense portion of it. And then you see the TRS on behalf that we had talked about a little while ago, that $8.5 million. Again, this is the expense side of it and showed you the revenue a little while ago. So total payroll is about $164.8 million. Out of that $199.5 million total budget, 164 is for payroll at this point in time, including all these amounts, including that TRS on behalf. So it's at 78 plus the 4% gets you that 83. Did you have a question, Mr. Salinas? No.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I'm glad you mentioned the TRS 4.6 million.
Yes, sir.
Again, this is one of those unfunded mandated. And I have to say that because I want to make sure that our taxpayers understand that we're not just spending money just to spend it. These are things that come up, and and we're responsible, and we can't say no. We have to pay. That's a lot of money, $4.6 million out of our funds. So maybe one of these days they'll realize that and do something better. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Again, a further breakdown of payroll cost is on this next slide, where it kind of takes every one of our different, and these are budgeted numbers for 16, 17, and the other numbers in the other columns for the other fiscal years are actual numbers. But as you can see, I mean, the larger numbers here are in that account that's labeled 6119, and those are the actual salaries for all of our teachers and every professional that works in the district. So $108 million goes towards that payroll cost, that payroll expense. And then a little bit further down, you'll see a 6129. That's for all our paraprofessionals. So that includes all the wages that we pay for our custodians, bus drivers, anybody who is an hourly employee. So we're about at $25 million for those staff's costs. And there's other things there. You'll see other, I know one of the things that we talk about a lot of substitutes. So if you go back to the very top and you see that 6112, those are what we budgeted for substitute costs for our school district for teachers mostly, a few professionals that get subs, but mostly teachers. So you can see that those numbers, are, and they've been kind of within that range over the past few years, but it is a huge number. Yes, sir.
This is, these budget numbers, they're not trued up to a certain point, are they? They're just strictly the budget?
They're strictly the budget.
Okay.
Yes, sir. We do monitor them, so to
Well, I know we
make
do
sure
it
that
monthly,
but they're
we
not
see it,
reflected
but-
here.
But
Right.
here, it's just the budget?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And the other number that you see that also for substitutes a little bit further down, there's another number that's 6122. It's labeled substitute auxiliary. That's our sub cost for our paraprofessional folks when we need to hire for those individuals. Obviously not anywhere near the amount as teachers. We don't hire as many subs for paraprofessionals. So there's those numbers there. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to address those. Otherwise, I'm going to keep on moving. Yes, sir. Mr. Salinas.
Can we go back?
Yes, sir.
Again, the substitute for teachers, the amount went up. But then I realized that, hey, we opened a new campus. Well, actually, we opened Copperfield not too long ago, and then we just opened Veterans Memorial. So that's why that figure went up to 1.3 versus 1.1. So, but we're doing okay as far as that's.
Yes, sir, we are, well,
But that's just
I
the
say
budget.
we're doing okay. That $1.1 million is what we actually spent last school year in 15-16.
Yeah.
So the 1.3 is our estimate as to what we'll spend this year. I mean, it could be a little bit less, it could be a little bit more. We're hoping it's no more. And yes, I mean, we think it's a safe number to shoot at. Now, it's still a lot. It's $1.3 million that we're spending on substitutes. That means that teachers mostly are not in the classroom because we're doing this. But a lot of times they're ill and they can't be there. They have, there's reasons for that.
Are we watching closer the, not having to send teachers to training during the, where we need to bring in substitutes?
Yes, they have the professional
Yeah,
development.
you
Yeah,
know,
professional
I mean,
development is cognizant of that, so they try to do as much development as they can without having to
Right.
either affect where a substitute is required while that professional development is going on. There's still some that happens, but
Right.
it is trying to be minimized. Yes, sir.
Jose, on the workman's comp, are we still doing okay, or do you think we might have to budget some more?
No. Workers' comp, we're doing really well in. If you all recall, for a number of years, back when we were having some budget troubles, we stopped contributing to workers' comp. And actually, if you look on, let me see if I can find it real quick right here. You'll see back in like year 12, 13, 11, 12, 10, 11, we had no contributions there. It was a little dash, 0, 0, and then $79 for a little adjustment we made back then. But it wasn't until the 13, 14 school year that we started contributing again to that program. So we took a number of years off from contributing, and it is continuing to grow, and so our fund reserve there is really well. We, at some point again, we may get to a point where we can say, hey, we can stop contributing for another year or two and use those resources for something else. But it's doing well.
Thank you, sir.
You bet. And I was going to say, just in that part, that's really attributed to our employees, being cautious when they're working and not getting hurt. So we appreciate that on their end to maintaining not high utilization of our workers' comp program, which helps let us use resources for other things instead of for paying for accidents.
And I believe Dr. Fields at the beginning has been providing more training concerning make sure the accidents and all of that, right, sir? Don't we have some kind of training going on?
With the maintenance program and transportation, yes, sir.
Okay, sir, thank you.
I had a question, and I was going to reserve my questions till after the presentation, but I like this concept that we're asking as you're going. It'll save some trying to remember in my mind. You had mentioned earlier that we had participants, and you said all stakeholders had been involved. I did see that there was a site-based committee that was involved. Can you tell me a little bit how they're involved in the
Sure.
budget process?
Absolutely. What happens is when we send campuses their allocations, it is actually a TEA requirement that they, by the principal, presents the budget to the site-based committee of their particular campus, and they have to, what they have to provide to us is an agenda of the meeting that they actually presented it to the site-based committee, and a signature sheet as to who all was present, to indicate that, yes, they did share the budget. Now, they don't have to follow what the site-based committee says, but they have to share it with them. Now, if they're smart, they're going to follow what they said. And if it's a collaborative effort, they're going to be showing them what their needs are at the campus while they're developing the campus improvement plan and then developing a budget that meets that campus improvement plan together with the site-based committee to make sure that they're all having input on how those funds are being allocated at each campus.
One of the concerns I have with site-based is that we have not enough community involvement in the site-based committees. So basically you have employees or teachers or staff. And I don't know, and this has always been a concern of mine, that if you have an employee involved in those committees, if they're really going to ever say anything. And my thought would be they would be a little hesitant to say anything. So we understand that we need more engagement from our community in the process. So that's a separate issue, but I wanted to just have an understanding of what you meant exactly about the stakeholders and their engagement or level of engagement. So just to understand what you're saying, every campus has a site base. It's not the district site base. It's the localized
Correct.
campus
Yes,
site.
that's correct.
And they sign.
They have to, when they submit their budget budget sheets to us, they have to submit with that a agenda of the meeting where they discuss it with site-based and a signature sheet of all the folks that were present at that meeting when it was discussed.
And the part of the budget that's relevant to them is on their campus.
That's
Is
correct.
that the part that they're reviewing?
Yes.
Okay, thank
That's
you.
correct. You bet.
You also have the district one.
Yes, I mean, we do it for the district, but it's usually done after the fact that we kind of present to them, this is the budget we adopt, this is where we're at, and we get input from them as well. But it's, because the budget, as you know, is a living document, we can come back and amend it and do things as we want throughout the year with board approval. So, but that's kind of the way it happens at the campuses. You bet.
BQB, legal and local references are district and campus. And it's very specific on who has to be on it based on your organization. So you have to have so many teachers, and you have to have so many parents, and you have to have, it's very specific as to who you can put on the committee.
Yeah, I understand that. How many citizens are supposed to be on these committees?
I don't really know, to be honest with you, not off the top of my head.
Two. Two, more can come, excuse me, more can come, but only two can vote.
Okay.
Representatives must be classroom teachers. The remaining staff representatives shall include both campus and district level professional staff members. And then it talks about parents.
So it would have community members and parents, they're different?
For the district site-based, yes, we do have two parents,
Mhm.
and we do have a business person that comes in and sits in our meetings every month.
But I think he's asking about the local.
I'm reading about the campus
The
one.
campus one.
Yeah,
You want the campus one?
You want
yeah, I'm
campus,
interested in
right?
campus, yes.
Mhm. BQB legal.
Okay. Thanks, Dr. Sines.
I'm going to keep on moving. Is that okay? All right. The next slide, again, this just kind of shows you, some of y'all that have been here for a while, well, I'll show you in a graph in a minute, but this shows you by expenditure how we're spending our money. So instructional program versus administration. So if you look at for the 16-17 school year, you'll see that we spent about $126.5 million in our instructional programs, where if you look a little bit further, and then you have, of course, the school leadership, which is more like our principals and their supporting staff at their schools, about $13.8 million. And then transportation is in that $25 million. And then for general administration, central administration, which is the building really up here, our offices, is about $4.7 million. And then we have the support services at 51, which is the maintenance folks, custodians, and those groups like that. And this is not only payroll, but it's all the different expenses that they do. Again, like utilities is in that 51 category. Again, ties to the bottom of $199.5 million. Here it shows you kind of in a graph form what I was going to say a minute ago. Some of y'all remember where there was a push by the legislature to make sure that districts are spending about 65% on instructional, and so our district's at 64%. And TA abandoned that a few years ago, though, because they found really that there was no correlation between that percentage and student success in the classroom. But just to kind of show you, that's where the majority of our funds go into the classroom to directly support student instruction. This is just a summary of the revenue expenditures and our fund balances. So for 16-17, based on the last budget amendment that the board approved, we had approved about $188.3 million in revenue, $199.5 million in expense. So that was going to leave us at the end of the year approximately $41.4 million in our fund balance, which is about 20.78% of our expenditures for that year, just to kind of give you an idea. And it shows you a little history there for the past few years as well, where we've kind of gone 26%, 22, 25, and then we're at 20 for this year. Again, this is budget. We always shoot for a better result when we close the books, but this is what is budgeted for right now. Yes, ma'am.
How close are we to, I mean?
We're supposed to be at 30.
School year
Oh, I'm sorry.
Revenue.
On our revenue, it's going to be really close. I mean, there's years in the past, and I've kind of been prefacing this as we had our budget meetings of preparing the following year budget, that there used to be times when I used to pad it to make sure that I had enough for things that came up throughout the year. And now we don't do as many budget amendments as we did at one time because those numbers are so tight now, where we're using ADA that's a lot closer to what it truly is, and that's one of our biggest driving factors there. And even with our property taxes, even throughout the year, just recently we had, again, recall JW Marriott, we've been giving them back money, and this year again, they went and complained about their values, and they won again, and so we're going to give them back, I think it's like $349,000. So it changes, things like that do affect us a little bit, but we try to be conservative in how we come up with these numbers, but realistic as well. We don't want to be too conservative because it precludes us from doing things that we really would like to do, so we try to get as close as we can to realistic, but still being on the conservative edge a little bit. So I think that those numbers are going to be close. I won't know for sure from the state until we have the last day of school, and then we come up with the true contact hours of all of our students in special ed settings, career and technology settings, everything, and then I can come up with a right-on number where it's, okay, I'm 99% sure this is our correct number. Yes, ma'am.
On the column that is the unreserved fund balances, what is the reason for the big jump between 15-16 and 16-17? That's about $5 million decrease.
Right. Well, the big reason for that is because this year, when we adopted the budget for 16-17, we adopted a budget that had a deficit of about $4 million. And so that's the biggest reason, and the driving force behind that was mostly opening of Veterans Memorial High School, that we had to staff that school up, and that was the reason that, the principal reason for that.
Oh, okay.
But just to give you an idea.
I see, you have it here in the notes.
Sure. And just to give you an idea, though, that I said we were at 20.78%. The board policy that we adopted is at 17%, so that number would be around $33 million, just so you have a baseline as to where we need to be versus where we're at, or the minimum that we should have is $33 million.
Does this include any money we put aside for land?
Right now, we don't have any more money set aside for land. When we purchased a property by Masters Elementary, Horizons Point, that's when we used the last amount of money that had been reserved for land. So once we finish this year, we may come back and look to see where we're at, and if it's possible, we may reserve some more.
Mr. Elizondo, I noticed that in the notes, you have the $3.5 million that was set aside for the retention incentive. So is that money still sitting in the account? It's just been earmarked for that at the present, or is it going to be coming off of that $41 million?
Okay. Well, that I'm going to answer this in two ways. So that $3.5 million that's on that slide, that's for fiscal year 13. So that was just kind of showing you history. So when you look back at the older years, you'll see what happened. So where really that retention incentive that the board approved, I think it was in October timeframe, is really for the fiscal year 2017, which is not reflected here yet. So, but to answer your question, when we're looking at that $41 million, it will be coming out of that number when we're looking at the fiscal 17-18 budget. And I will be covering that here in just a little bit when we get to that point.
Oh, great, thank you.
You bet. Again, some of y'all attended, and I forget what this is called all the time. It always confuses me if it's SLI or LSI or whatever it's called.
SLI.
SLI, I'm sorry for that.
SLI.
But this is one of the graphs, and I know a number of you requested this graph, and they call it as the alligator mouth. So when you look at that red line and the blue line, when you see it opening up like that a little bit, it's like the alligator starting to open its mouth, and the wider it gets is the more danger you're getting into. And so you want to keep it as close as possible, meaning that the revenues and expenditures are tracking really closely to each other, and you're doing well when you're doing that. That green line at the bottom just kind of shows you the fund balance, and you'll see it's kind of pretty much staying there, and you saw it under the slide and with numbers, but you'll see that for 16-17 it looks like it's taking a little bit of a dive, and that's that $4 million difference there to $5 million that's going down a little bit. This is, again, just another representation of our fund balance to kind of show you the numbers there, where it was at last year, 15-16, we were at 46.8, and this year we're forecasting that it's going to end around 41.4. Again, hopefully we'll do better than that, but just to kind of give you an idea. The next fund that we have is child nutrition, and these will go a little bit faster because they're a lot smaller. But child nutrition, again, is where we provide the funds to feed our students breakfast and lunch. Again, for 16-17, you'll see that local funds are about $2.1 million, and that's mostly collections that we get during the lunch sales when we're charging students for their meals and teachers. Then the state funds at $75,000. Y'all, I think, will recall that it was a milk suit from a long time ago that the state sued the milk companies for price rigging, if you will, or not being fair about competitive pricing their milk. So we still get a little bit of money from that every year. You can see it's always in the $70,000 range, which is very material to that fund. And then the federal funds, that's the biggest source for that particular fund, for the child nutrition fund. And again, that's the free and reduced lunch program. That's where a lot of our students, we get funds for them to have their meals. So in total, about $12.7 million is what that fund operates on as far as revenues. On the expense side, the majority of those funds, well, I'm going to clarify that. There was a time where the majority of our funds were being spent on payroll costs, but as you can see now, it's not payroll, it's on the 6,300, which is buying the actual food supplies and non-food items like the plates and forks and everything else that they use, which is good. It's just a testament to how well they manage the labor in that program, and that's one of the reasons that we're always able to have a little bit extra funds in that program to do other things, because they do manage that program really, really well. So on the expense side in total, you're talking about $13.6 million mostly. So as just a recap really quick, like I said, I don't go into a lot of detail on this fund. The revenue, again, is 12.7, budget expenditure is 13.5, their fund balance is about 2.3, and so they're at 17.13, which is good, because the maximum they can have is 3 months worth of operating, which it's like 20, I forget exactly the percentage, but that's within the range, so the TA shouldn't have any problem with them maintaining a fund balance at that level. And we, if you all remember, we've been kind of spinning that fund balance down, because at one point we did have too much fund balance in the child nutrition fund. Again, this is that chart. You can see that they're tracking closely. They're a little bit off between the revenue and the expense. Expense a little bit higher than revenue, but by the end of the year, they usually end up really close to each other. The other years that you see, the older year there, where the alligator mouth would have been opening, we purposefully did that to spin down that fund balance, that we had too much fund balance in those funds. The next fund I'm going to cover is interest and sinking. This is the third fund that the board has to adopt a budget for, and this is the fund where this is what pays for the principal and the interest on all the bonds that we sell. So this is like the mortgage payment, if you will, for all the bonds that are sold from the district. On the just on the funding sources, the local funds, again, those are our taxpayers paying funds via their property taxes, so we can pay for this principal and interest payments. The state helps a little bit. We get about $1 million. And the reason that fluctuates, it depends on which bonds you have that are out and how much principal and interest are due on those particular bonds, and they only pay a certain percentage for those bonds that are out. And as we're getting a little bit further down the line, the principal and interest on those bonds have declined, so we're getting less money from the state for that. On the other resources, that $212 million, that, as you can tell if you look up and down that column, that number changes a lot. And the reason that is because of the refundings. Whenever we do bond refundings, it shows up, and you'll see it in a minute too when we do the other side of it, the expense side, that we have to book or do an entry for accounting purposes every time we refund bonds. So it kind of skews the picture a little bit, but it's required, so I showed to y'all here. So total revenue says 247 million, but that's 212 million of that is for refunding bonds. So they give us the money and then we, we refund those bonds and we give it right back out again. It all happens within the same transaction. So on the expense side, our payments for principal and interest are about $36 million. That's what we budgeted, and that's what the number is. And on the other uses, again, those are the refunding bonds, 210 million. So in total, for expenses for this year, the budget's $247 million for that fund.
Can you give us a ballpark figure as to how much we've saved due to refinancing?
Instead of me guessing, I do have that number. I'll send it to you if you don't mind, because I hate to give you the wrong number. It's substantial, but I don't want to give you the wrong number, either too low or too high. If you wouldn't mind, let me just send it to you all so you have what it is. And we can, at the next budget meeting, I'll definitely discuss it so you all know too. Okay.
And we have sold all our bonds, everything.
Everything has been sold, yes, sir. Now it's just waiting for construction projects to continue on so we can continue to spend it. And the plan is 3 to 5 years will be completely done, hopefully within closer to 3 years. On the, just a summary of that fund again, just showing you on one page where we are with the revenues, the expenditures, and the fund balance. Now that fund balance shows it's $19 million for this year, and there's an asterisk there. And if you kind of look at the bottom of the page, there's a little note. What happens is our fiscal year ends June 30th, but we have a debt service payment, a principal and interest payment that's due in August. So it always skews that number, and that payment's about $9 to $10 million. So our fund balance is a little bit closer to $8 to $9 million, and not really $19 million. Here's this chart again, and here you can't even see hardly the revenue line, but it's under there. They're just matched up, and that's the purpose for this fund. For debt service, you cannot charge the taxpayers any more money that's required for you to meet your principal and interest payments. So they're going to always be right on top of each other. The revenue has to meet the expenditures. We're not allowed to collect any more money than we need to pay the principal and interest payments. We could collect a little bit like that. Fund balance has been growing, but that's because we get interest throughout the years and things like that. So you develop a little bit of fund balance in that fund. Does anybody else have any additional questions on this particular PowerPoint? Okay. All right, so is it okay if I move on to the next number? So I can get this thing to click here. Okay, now this one's going to be a little bit different because this is a PDF, so it's a little bit harder to read. We try to put it in the PowerPoint, but these numbers, there's so many numbers in here that it was even harder. So this is where I'm going to start talking a little bit about the budget development for next school year. And this is the kickoff meeting for this budget development, so it's very, very preliminary. This first sheet that I'm going to show you here, and I'm going to scroll a little bit, I hope I don't make you all dizzy, as I make myself dizzy sometimes with this, is it shows you several columns of information. Just for 16-17, it tells you how many students we had at each one of these locations, and then for 17-18, it shows you what we're projecting. For instance, Judson High School, you'll see that there's a decline. That's mostly because of the students that are going to be moving to Veterans Memorial for the next year, the next grade level. So you'll see it, and a little bit further over, it shows you how much money we're giving the school per student and what their allocation is for the year. Like for Judson High School, it's at $352,000. And then they, of course, again, look at that, take that number, and then they distribute it out to all their different programs within their school to develop their budget, and then give that back to us, and we input it into the system. And you can see that allocations are different. The per pupil allocations based on, if you're a high school, you get $120 per student. Then if you're at the Judson Early College Academy, there it's one of these things where the cost for those particular students is a little bit higher than a regular school. So we had to, and there's not as many students either. So we had to give them a little bit more money to make sure that they have sufficient funds to operate that program. And then after that, you'll see middle schools are at $95, and then all the elementaries are at $87. Anybody have a question on this slide? I'm gonna keep going. And what we do, just to kind of to let you know, and I think y'all already know this, but we do a projection of what the of the enrollment for next year, and then after snapshot in October, when they do PEAM snapshot, we look to see what they actually have for enrollment, and then we'll do an adjustment at that point. If we gave them too much money, we don't take it back generally because they've already planned for that money, and we don't want to make them go back and shift to try to figure out what to do. So we're really conservative on this number to make sure that we're not giving them too much money. And the other ones that we shorted, we will go back and make adjustments and give them money around the December, January timeframe so that they can have additional funds for the students that they've grown that we didn't account for.
Mr. Elizondo?
Yes, sir?
On this particular one, I did find it interesting, and I look forward to going through it in greater detail, but for my assessments as well, I made a request for title funding per campus as well, so that I have an idea of how much funds are going to, title funds that is, so you'll be able to provide that to
Yes,
to us
we
in the
will.
future?
Yes, Ms. Roddy prepares that information, and we'll definitely provide that to you all, so you can have an allocation by campus for Title I funding. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next page. This sheet here talks a little bit about the general operating fund. And of course, this is, again, the biggest fund that we have to account for. And there's a couple of numbers here that I just want to call your attention to. Where it says estimated taxable value, $8.7 billion. That's what the appraisal district says our school district is worth. I had somebody tell me the other day, hey, guess what, I'm a millionaire. And I'm like, really? That's what Bexar County says? And so it's like, okay, if you say so. But you can see the huge jump. If you look at the number right beneath that, the $7.9 billion, the growth from one year to the next. And that's what, I'm sure y'all have been seeing the stories on television about saying, if you know, the property, the appraisals are going up 9%, 10%, 11%.
Yes.
And if you want, go protest your tax as well. And when we did this $8.7 billion amount, we've already knocked some of the value off because we know some of those protests are going to be successful. So we adjust for that to make sure that we're not accounting for too much money there. And the appraisal district is really good about sending us updates every so often. So we'll continue to refine that number as we go through this process. They have to actually certify a roll by July the 25th, which is of course after our budget adoption, but we still continue to monitor and be very conservative and closely to what the number we think is going to be. And we've been really successful. Janice, our tax assessor collector, does a really good job with that. And so we've always been really, we have never gone over the number that we think it's going to be where we're in a bad situation because we're not collecting sufficient property taxes. The collection rate here that we show for, is at 98%. This is one of those things that I was mentioning a minute ago where we do try to pad a little bit to have a little bit of a cushion. We do actually do better than that in collections, but 98 is the number that we always use as a safe number to budget on just in case something goes awry with that. Our ADA for next school year, we're budgeting 22,100 students for ADA. This year we budgeted at 22,000. Not a huge growth. And at the next meeting, I want to bring a slide about that, and I think you already know that when the demographer did his presentation, you saw that we had a dip in our enrollment. We lost some students. We're attributing that to charter schools. Not sure if that's exactly what it is, but that's what we're attributing it to. But as they said, those kids will be coming back. And in a way, and I know this doesn't sound good, but in a way, it has given us a little bit of breathing room because if we still had those other 900 kids here, 800 kids, capacity-wise, depending on what school they were going to be going to, it could have caused us some bigger issues with trying to figure out where we're going to put them. So this is kind of what it's looking like for next year. Again, at the end of this year, when school's over, I'll get a better ADA number. So this 22,000 student count will change a little bit, and hopefully I can then refine the 22.1 based on when we get that real number. The attendance rate we're using is about 94.6%. We usually do better than that, and we're doing a little bit better than that this year, but not by much. I think that if y'all recall, the law changed a little bit as to what we can do with our truant students now and what kind of enforcement can be done at the courts. And unfortunately, that has had an impact, a negative impact on the school district, where we can't really make students come as much as we used to in the past. And so we are taking a little bit of a hit there on the attendance. But I know Mr. Gonzalez and his group are really trying to work with the schools to get those students there. And I think y'all remember that we did an amendment the other day, an attendance incentive to some of the schools to try to help them with that. And we're monitoring the data. It wasn't as successful as we'd like, so I'm not sure if we're going to do that again or not, but we'll continue to see if how we can try to improve the attendance. Because that is if we can bring that number up, even a percentage point, it will mean a big amount of money for the school district. And we do monitor this weekly to see where all of our schools are. All right, I'm going to start reviewing some of these numbers just really briefly. You'll see that if we look at the current tax line row here, you'll see that we're increasing about $8.7 million. And again, that's because of that huge reappraisal from the appraisal district that I showed you a minute ago. So that's great. And the only bad thing about it is when you increase property taxes or local collections like this, the state takes money away from you. So you'll see here that we received about $8.7 million increase here. These other numbers, we left them pretty much constant. We did do a little decrease on the delinquent taxes, the prior year taxes, because our taxpayers have been good about paying their taxes, so we don't have as much in the delinquent rolls, so that number has come down a little bit. When we go down a little bit further to the state revenue, again, you'll see that there are different programs here. And the way I calculated the state revenue, there's a gentleman by the name of Omar Garcia who used to work for the Texas Education Agency, and he has a template that he creates. And what you do is you go into the template and you populate all the information that it asks for, and it gives you an estimate of what a very close estimate as to what the agency is going to pay you. And so he's made some adjustments to that template based on what he's thinking the legislature might pass this year. But again, it's just they're just his thoughts. Nothing's final by any means. We have a long way to go. So these are just our best estimates at this point using the latest template that he has out there, as he says, subject to change and change drastically possibly. So this is what it's looking like right now. So based on this template, you'll see that the state is taking $3.6 million away from us as compared to last year. The majority of this, again, is due to the fact that we grew so much with our tax base, and we're collecting more out of property taxes, so the state's taking money away.
But I say, I thought they were going to have a bill. They have a bill in place to where the state is going to actually take care of the districts, because they understand that they're taking away money when our taxes go up. I hope, I don't know if it's gonna pass or not, but hopefully that'll help a little bit. Not too much, but at least
Sure.
if they do that, I think that would be great for us.
Sure, agreed. There are a number of bills still out there, definitely, as y'all know. Unfortunately, the House and the Senate are kind of worlds apart right now. And so sometimes they're a lot closer so we can get a better idea as to what they're doing, but right now they're not that close to each other. So yes, it's anybody's guess at this point. We'll have to just continue to monitor and see what they end up giving us. You bet. Thank you, sir. On the next page here, just as a total revenue component, we're looking at about, right now, $191 million in this particular forecast, which again, very, very preliminary. It will definitely change. Just want to make sure I emphasize that enough. On the salaries and benefits, getting to the expense side, what this number represents mostly is just taking the prior year number that we ended up with for payroll and moving it up and making some adjustments for the additional staff or programs that were added throughout the year. That's why it's a little bit more than this number here. And then what I did for now, for this particular presentation, is I used a placeholder of $2 million for new staff. And this $2 million are for staff for Veterans Memorial High School for the next grade level. Some of those staff members will be moved from Judson High School, so that won't cost anything. We're just going to be shifting them. But there will be some staff members that we cannot shift, and because of the numbers, we have to add some staff there. It's also for the STEM program at Wagner High School. That's coming on board for this next year. It's also for some of the early college high school costs that are coming forward for this next year. So that number's there. We're working through. We have a list right now that equals almost, I want to say is about $7 million, about $7 million of staff requests, new staff, reclassification and stuff. And that's not unusual. We have numbers like that every year when we ask people, hey, what are we looking for next school year? And then what happens is the executive team, the cabinet members, start reviewing those lists to try to par that down to what is a priority 1, priority 2, priority 3. And then once we get to that point, then we review it with Dr. Montoya and we present to him what work we've done and why we think certain things are important or not. And then, of course, he says, yes, agree, or no, I disagree, and we'll make those changes and adjustments. And then we present it to the board as a list saying, hey, these are the requests that we're looking for next year. And then, of course, obviously, y'all can tell us the same thing, whether you all think it's good or bad. But that's just there as a placeholder for now. And by the time we meet, it may not be the next meeting, maybe the meeting after that, we'll have a better number there to show you, so we can actually give you a supporting list that goes with that number. And then the retention incentive that the board approved, and this is what you were asking about earlier, Mr. Macias. Again, I think it was October, November timeframe, maybe even December. We have adjusted this number a little bit because it was a little over $2 million when the board approved it, but we did some looking to see, okay, how many people have left that are not going to be eligible because those positions, they're not here anymore. And so we started bringing those numbers down a little bit and figured that for right now, and that'll continue to change, because the individuals have to have been hired, I think it was by the end of December, and they have to be with us, I think it's by September the 1st. So people will leave, a little more leave during the summer, so that number will be adjusted a little bit, but it's not going to be a huge adjustment, I hope, because that means retention's working if they stay. The numbers that you see here at the bottom, I've adjusted them a little bit for a few things that I was aware of, but there's not a lot of adjustments yet. So this number that you're looking at here, the bottom right now, the way this budget is right now, if we were to adopt it, we would adopt a budget that has a deficit of $4 million, okay? And that doesn't include any salary increases. That is just the things, the retention incentive, the new staff for the programs that we have to do because we're, again, Veterans Memorial, the STEM program. So as the state gives us a better idea as to what they're going to be doing, then I can come back to you with a better number. But just know that as of right now, unless the state does some miraculous thing that helps us a lot, things are not looking good. We're already starting at $4 million deficit at this point with this particular forecast.
When you talk about the incentive, the $2 million,
Yes, sir.
and you said, well, it may go down, many people leave. Shouldn't the $2 million stay there and then, okay, if people leave, then the other people get a little more?
Well, that's up to y'all. The way that we did it is the board, at that point, we'd have to bring an action item back to the board because the board approved $625 was the amount per individual. So if there are fewer people and you still wanted to say, we want to stay with the original $2 million amount, then we can definitely say, well, that increases it to $650 instead of $625, something like that. But that would definitely be up to the board. If y'all visit with Dr. Montoya and say, hey, we'd like to do it that way, we want to keep the $2 million in there, and then we'll divide it by the number of people that are eligible, and we'll bring an action item to you in the future to do that, then we can definitely do that. Okay, you bet. And so this number here, this at the very bottom, it was this $41.4 million that you saw earlier that we're forecasting for the current year to be ending. So if we were to adopt a budget like this that has a negative $4.061 million, it would come out of that $41 million that we had and take that number down a little bit. It still would be above the number that the board has, the floor that the board has established, but it's getting, it's chipping away at it.
But also in August, we would have that big payment.
Say that again, I'm sorry?
In August, we would have that payment, that
That's a different fund. That's the interest and sinking fund. Yep, this is just a general operating fund. Yep. All right, so I'm going to continue on. Yes, Mr. Chow. Yes, ma'am.
I just want some clarity.
You bet.
So that $4 million deficit is due to the retention incentives? And what did you say, I thought I read you list a few things.
Sure. The way that number, that $4 million deficit at this point is a result of what we think the state's going to give us in revenue, which can change. And the major driving forces, if you'll look here again, we have the $1.8 million, which is the retention incentive.
Right.
And we have the $2 million up here that is for the new staff, for Veterans Memorial, and for the STEM program at Wagner High School and Early College High School. All those things are part of these numbers, as well as some other few things. So yes, if we were not to do that, and for you all were for some reason to rescind the retention incentive, then you would be back at zero back here. The only good thing about the retention incentive that I will say, it's a one-time cost, so it's not, a recurring expense, right? Where this other $2 million up here for additional staff is a recurring expense. So just kind of keep that in mind as we go forward. And again, these numbers are going to be changed a lot as we know more, and the next meeting will give you another update where we're at.
Mr. Elizondo, in terms of that, this initial projection,
Yes.
we'll get details in terms of that $2 million that you have up there.
Yes.
Where and how it's allocated, if it's early college or if,
Absolutely.
what that looks like. Because I remember last year, we did bring some concerns that the staffing allocation at Veterans Memorial wasn't on par with the level of students that were on the campus, and there was room to actually take some positions out. So it's helpful to see the whole picture.
And we definitely will share that with you. Once we get to the point, and that's what I mentioned a little while ago, that it won't be the next meeting, but the meeting after that, they will actually give you a list that will tie back to that number, so you can see exactly what location, what position, and how much we're estimating it's going to cost.
And you
for
did
that
mention early college, and naturally, based on the change in the MOU with Alamo colleges, there is an increased cost now in that program. So that $2 million is taking that into account for next year?
No, this $2 million is only for staff. The portion about the additional cost for tuition and things like that, a little further down here, there's another number that's $27.7 million. It's embedded in this number here.
So it's in the operating cost?
Yes.
So what was last year's operating?
27.059 right next to it.
Okay. So it's the same, but it's embedded there if we did see it, I see.
Yep.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go on to the next one. The next fund is the Child Nutrition Fund. And this is, again, the one where, we provide meals for our students. There really is I didn't make any changes on this fund because we have not sat down with them yet to discuss our revenue forecasts and expenditures for next year. So it's basically just moving the 16-17 data over to the 17-18, and that's what's being presented here. There really is nothing to really speak to of much. The only thing that I added here was I did the retention incentive that for the amount of money that's paid out of that fund for the folks that are there that qualified. And I did a little bit and that was it. We put a little bit of for new personnel for any programs that are coming on board that they may need. But again, these numbers are subject to be changed, and they will be changed for sure. Again, their fund balance at the end of this year is estimated to be about $2.3 million. So they do have a decent fund balance there as well in that fund.
Are all the kitchens and everything in these schools there, full kitchens?
No, we in this particular bond that was just approved, there are 7 kitchens that are being redone. And so those are the ones that the board approved the architects for maybe 2 months ago, I think. And so they will be working on doing those during the next year and a half to 2 years.
Will that complete all of them then?
I don't know the answer to that question. Victor, do you know? Is that all? Once you do these 7 kitchens, is that all of them going to? Yes, sir, that will be all of them.
So then we won't have the central kitchen anymore?
I wouldn't say that. We'd have to visit with them because there will probably be some things that they still will prepare at the central kitchen because it just makes more sense to do that. You won't have maybe as many folks there or as much activity happening there, but they're still going to be doing things at the central kitchen because it just makes more sense and it's more efficient to do it that way. Sure. Oh, yes, sir. Oh, okay.
I just wanted to tell the board, page 37 is very, very important, where you give us the tentative dates, and it's got a lot of good information there. Thank you very much for fixing that for us. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Sorry. So, yeah, we're coming though. We're coming. It's just 2 more pages and we'll get there. The interest sinking fund, again, this is where we pay our principal interest payments. I made the adjustment here for the tax rate. And actually, let me point this out. Based on the increased property values, this particular year that we're in right now, our tax rate is at 43 cents. Based on the bonds, now this is not including the bond that's out for the voters to decide what they want to do with here in the next few days, but based on what we currently owe right now, our tax rate will be going down from 43 cents down to 39 cents because of the new values of the district. Just being real clear, that doesn't mean that the taxpayers are going to see less of a tax bill, but we get to bring the tax rate down because the value is higher, so we need to collect a certain amount of money. So their bill may not be any less, but our tax rate will be lower. Yes, sir.
If the bond passes, we still can do that?
Is your mic on?
If the bond passes, are we still doing what you just said?
If the bond passes, we will look to see when, how our principal and interest payments will hit. What would probably happen, it still will decrease, but instead of being 39 cents, we told the voters 2 pennies is all we would ask for this, so it may go up to 41 cents.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay.
At what point do you see us ever having to go for those 4 golden pennies?
Well, actually, we're at $1.04 tax rate right now. You're allowed to go up to $1.17. So it's 13 pennies total that we could go and ask the voters for. And that's going to be a discussion that we're going to have to, if the state doesn't start funding us differently, we were hoping never to have to do that, but that never may be not possible. So as we're starting to see that we are not being able to maintain and being competitive with other districts with different salaries and what have you, we may have to go ask our voters for permission to do that. And increasing their tax rate on the M&O side by 13 pennies, bringing us to $1.17. There are already a lot of school districts that have done that. So we may at some point in the near future have to start those discussions to see if it's something that we want to do.
And we see that as we come, where our expenditures are running away from the revenue.
Yep.
And, but I guess what I'm asking, do you have, 3 years or something? Because it's not getting any closer.
Right.
And hasn't been.
If the legislature doesn't do anything, maybe this biennium will be okay, but by the next biennium, if they don't do anything, then it's going to be not should we, but we're going to probably have to do that. So you're talking within the next 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
I'm going to hope they change it because I really don't want to go ask the voters for that.
Jose, maybe for the next budget meeting or something, can you find out, Bear County only, out of all the school districts, we're at 104. Can we get a reading as to where are the other ones or something?
Sure.
Compare, in other words, compare, just nothing elaborate, but just say, oh, by the way, we're at 104.
Sure.
This one is at 106, this one is at 103,
Yes,
this
sir.
one is 112.
Yep, we have that data.
So we can see a picture,
Yep,
okay?
yes, we have it. We have it for this current year. We won't know for next year yet because it's going to take a while. to get it,
correct.
But we'll definitely have it for this
Okay.
year. And we can even bring you a list of all the school districts that are at $1.17 that have already gone to their voters to ask.
Thank
and
you,
moved
sir.
up. You bet.
Mr. Elizondo as well, I think there was someone mentioning about if the bond passes, but also not to exclude the concept that if the bond passes, we will be seeing, 4.4 million coming back to the fund balance,
Yes.
which would obviously help our overall fund balance total.
That's correct. In case anybody's not aware, when Veterans Memorial was being constructed, there were some improvements that we decided it made sense to do them now, and it had to do mainly with some of the athletic fields. If not, we were going to have to transport students elsewhere to do practice and whatever, and we felt like, no, that's not really a good way to do this. Let's go ahead and let them borrow some money so we can go ahead and finish those fields, not completed, but at least to a point where the students can practice there. So we ended up letting them borrow $4.4 million, and it's in this bond that if the bond passes, that we get to take that $4.4 million and reimburse it back to the general operating fund. So you're right, it will be deposited back into that fund, a one-time deposit.
And just for the record, if it fails, we lose this opportunity, right? This is it?
I believe that, I think that's a true statement, but before I could tell you 100%, I need to go look at a couple documents. But there's a time frame only in which you can do that. There's only so many months that you're allowed to, from the point you expend the monies to when you can get it back. And I think that before our next opportunity, we may have another opportunity in November, but after that, it is definitely no longer going to.
So it's pretty close, pretty close to the.
Yep.
One thing that I will tell you is that in speaking with members of the community, that a lot of the apprehension, I think, in terms of because we've been talking bonds all day long now, is that we're not as efficient as a district, at least that's their perception, and that we're not at a level of academic achievement where we should be based on the amount of funds being put in. I would dare say that we're doing as well as we can, and we will do better. But if we ever have to get to that golden penny area where we have to add, if we have a bona fide process that's showing excellence or producing excellence, I don't see the community saying, no, we won't support that. Hopefully we don't ever have to go there, but I think there's a correlation. Success will help the community support us. That's just my thoughts.
Jose, I was reading in the paper that the legislator is looking to pass a bill where we don't have to go out for a vote in order to raise our tax rate.
There may be a bill like that. I just have not followed it, but there may be a bill. I'm not going to, there's a lot of bills
I was looking
out
at the
there.
legislators today, the bill's up for that, and that was one of them. It was confusing to me.
Sure. We can definitely look to see, but I'm just not familiar with one right now, but it may be out there. Okay, all right, I'm going to keep moving. This particular fund, again, we made the adjustments for the principal payments for this next coming year that, as far as we know right now, without anything for this particular bond that's out there right now. So, again, this is that $19 million amount, and here it is. I knew I had put it somewhere. Out of the $19 million, $11.8 million is what that payment is due. That's due in August. So it adjusts that number down to more in the $7.5 to $8 million range. All right, and this is the page that I think Mr. Salinas was referring to a little bit ago, which is the calendar. I think this is what he was talking about, right? Was that right? Yes. Because I don't have page numbers on here, I'm sorry. But the calendar for the meetings that we have, again, it's a tentative calendar. Y'all are welcome to change it. Just visit with Dr. Montoya, and we can have more meetings, less meetings, whatever y'all like. The next meeting that we have scheduled at this time is for May the 16th, which is a week after next. And at this meeting, right now, we're trying to coordinate with TASB to make sure it's possible. But what we're trying to present at this meeting, as y'all know, we had engaged TASB to do a compensation study for the school district to tell us where we're at market-wise, and also to give us information on what it would cost to do some adjustments to get to the market for the areas that we're not at market at, and also for projections for salary increases. So we're hoping that at that meeting, I think y'all may remember Luz Cadena with TASB is available to come and present to y'all the process that she followed and her findings and recommendations, so that y'all can kind of know that. And then as we move through the process, then that'll give you a better idea if you decide that we want to give salary increases. That'll kind of give you some numbers to kind of look at for anything like that. So that's going to be, if she's available, that's what we're going to try to be our focus on that meeting. And if I know any more about what the state's doing, of course, I'll give you an update on the revenues and things at that meeting. But if anybody, like I said, if any of y'all would like more meetings, then please discuss with Dr. Montoya, and we will, and we can make that happen. If you want less meetings too.
I know. I saw that.
Jose, hopefully the state adopts what, May 30th or June something?
I think
That's
it's
when
in
this, no.
I think it's in
The
the May.
session the session closes May.
30th.
Is that right, Mr. Flores, the 30th?
I think so,
Yeah, okay. So hopefully by the meeting that we got coming up, maybe we'll have more information.
Definitely, that's the hope.
And hopefully it'll be good news.
Sure. And what will happen too, not at the meeting on the 16th, but the meeting right after that, I always share with you the budgets that are by department, kind of showing you what the department had last year, where they're kind of at spending-wise to that point, and then what they're asking for next year. We'll share that list with you and what their requests are, so we can review that as well and answer any questions you have about the department budgets. I already gave you bad news. I told somebody earlier, I said, I hate when I have to tell them that we're at a deficit. I like telling them we have a lot of money to do whatever we want, but that's not the case, unfortunately. Okay, that concludes, oh, yes, sir.
I'm sorry, it just keeps playing back in my mind. I fully expect our bond to pass, but just for the sake of you mentioning November as a possibility, as a last, hey, I don't think it's going to pass. But if we have to have a contingency, based on that timeline, say it doesn't pass, we're now going into June, don't we need time to put it on a November ballot, and what does that timeline look like?
I don't know it off the top of my head, but I know that you would have, I think it's like 3 months, 3 to 4 months prior to the election day that you have to do it, so there would be ample time if the board decided to do that, if it didn't work out. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Again, folks, you received a ton of information, but very important information, and obviously as the legislature continues in the next few weeks and we get more specific information, we can do that and share it with you, and that's exactly what will happen. Now, moving along on the two areas tonight of the program review, the first one will be the area of transportation, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Fields.
Yes, sir. Thank you again for allowing us to come to you and talk about a review of these two particular programs. The first up is transportation. I know that some of the major issues that they had to deal with for this fiscal year was the bus guard safe system, the bus wash, and reducing bus accidents. So I'm going to ask Mr. Johnson to come up and speak to you guys briefly about that at this time.
Good evening. I just want to thank the board for the opportunity to share the pertinent issues in transportation and review the progress that we've made in addressing these issues. First thing I'd like to share with you is about the bus wash. When I arrived last year in the school, our bus wash system was inoperable. The buses were being washed by hand using a pole with a brush. This method contributed to the fading of the paint, and also the buses never looked like they were washed. Also, the crews were not able to wash the entire 200 bus fleet at any one time. Funding became available, the bus wash was installed and began operation in March. It's already been proven to be a great benefit. Employee morale has increased tremendously. We can wash the entire bus fleet 2 times a month. The faded buses, the shine is starting to come back onto the buses. And we're receiving many, many compliments through schools. Even my grandkids said, "Man, this bus is looking great." And even other districts then. A second major concern was reducing accidents. 2 years before I came here in 2014 and 15, Judson had 18 accidents reported to the state. Last year, in the 2015-16 year, we reported 10 accidents. Though the reduction has been reduced there, our mission was to continue to reduce our accidents. I can tell you at this time for the 2016-17 year, we have 1 accident to report to the state. This is because we started at the beginning of the year an intense refresher course for our drivers. We've purchased the latest training course, and we've implemented our camera systems on the bus to help us be proactive in watching what drivers are doing and to deal with the issues before anything happens. A third major concern was the implement of the bus guards camera system. We entered into a correlation with Northeast District, South San, and Southside districts where Bus Guard Company installed 12 cameras in each of our buses. In a short time that this system has been operational, we have seen 131 citations in the school motorists passing the Judson buses. When you look at the 4 districts that involved, this is over 500 buses in the San Antonio area with this system there, and it's beginning to get the attention of motorists to stop passing the buses. And our drivers are already sharing that they've seen a reduction of people passing their buses. The last major concern was our opening of our new school. And of course, when we did this, there was the choice where the kids, 9th graders and 10th graders, went either to Judson or to Veterans. That caused us to have to make double routes. We had buses going down the same street, one picking up going to Judson, one going to Veterans there. We had to have 13 buses to be able to accommodate veterans. In addition, the board approved 5 buses for the career technology shuttles that's been throughout the district for those programs there. We had a great start without any hitch, and we've had a great success throughout the school year. Is there any questions you might ask? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. And yes, I've heard from some parents as I'm walking the streets that they were actually commending the transportation company, the transportation, Judson, about picking up the kids. This lady had some go to Judson, some go to Memorial, and she said, my kids love it, riding the bus to Memorial. They feel safe while they're in the bus. So obviously, and just by what you said, that preventing accidents has been tremendous, because I think in the long run, that's going to help as far as the insurance not having so many claims. So I think that is terrific. As far as it says here, additional 450 8th graders that will be going to Memorial. Well, the majority of them will be going over there. And you do have enough buses that's going to cover that, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are they still wearing their shirts? I haven't seen too many of them wear their shirts.
I'm sorry?
Their shirts? The bus drivers.
They're wearing, yeah,
Okay.
Everyone wears them.
That looks real nice.
Thank you.
It looks real nice. And thank you, sir. You're doing a great job, and I appreciate everything that you're doing for our kids, because basically it's for our kids. Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
I just don't know what, I'm looking at the key strategies, and you said the 15 Bluebird gas buses, what's that?
Well, that's the Bluebird is the type of bus we're getting. You know, there's International, there's Thomas. Bluebird is the one that won the bid for this year, and we're going through gas buses this year.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So that's just like a Ford Chevy.
Yes.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Got it. There you go.
And we got the Cadillac on the Bluebird.
There you go.
Okay, so Bluebird Cadillac.
Bluebird Cadillac, yes.
And we got 15 Cadillacs.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Johnson, I was going to follow up on Mr. Salinas' comments about the uniforms. I think they're really strong for our bus drivers. So are we going to do more to support that, different colors? I don't know if the bus drivers are actually having to buy them themselves, or if we're providing them, or, because I only see one color, I think. So
Yes.
what's the plan in that respect?
Well, we at this point, we're buying the uniforms. We give them four shirts each for that.
All the same
We're-
color?
Same color right now.
Okay.
Make it a uniform. So next year, maybe probably in 2 years, we're going to be looking, because the shirts are going to start wearing out, and we'll have to go to buying them more shirts. We will get with our TAC committee, which is our driver committee. We'll get it out there, see what color shirt we'd like to go to, and we may change the color at that time.
The original intent was that the color of the shirt be recognizable by anyone that it was a bus driver. So if we were to move to another color, it wouldn't be interchangeable. We would just turn to another color to where we could be recognizable.
I think that's smart. That's good. And of course, I imagine, I think one of the benefits was that we would have less concerns on campus of bus drivers going in, they're identifiable, so that's always strong. And then I also wanted to know, we had to divert or revise our hazardous bus routes some years ago, and it was a 1.5 or 2 mile rule at the time. With us now doing a lot more driving from here to there, are we re-examining those particular routes to see if maybe we can pick them back up?
Yes, sir, we are. In fact, as summer gets here, we'll be going back out there to look at these routes and see if we need to change them or add more to those.
Well, thank goodness. I mean, the safety of our children has been, I mean, we've not had any issues with it, but I do remember the concerns, especially FM 78 with the traffic, and so
Yes.
anything that we can do to help is always beneficial.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Are you aware of the bill in the legislature about the cameras? You know, they're talking about doing away with cameras on buses, street light cameras and everything. Have we looked at that to see if it passes? Well, we'll have a lot of cameras. What are we going to do with it?
Yes, sir, we are. Matter of fact, the bus guard safety system came to us and asked us if we would go up to the Hill with them to testify how much it's affected the safety of our buses. I would tell you, though, that the cameras that are on our buses now were supplied by that particular company. So they're working diligently to allow us to keep those. But they paid for the expenditures to put those 7 cameras on the buses and upgrade that system.
And again, right now, there's also discussion at the state level of seatbelts on buses. So we don't know where that one's going. I think that probably what's going to happen is obviously new buses in the future will have seatbelts. But the discussion is, what do you do with the older buses? Do you go back and retrofit? And so it's still up in the air, that piece.
If there's no other questions, the next up is facilities planning. And thank you, sir. The major issues that I know faced this department over the last school year was the insurance claims from the hail damage about a year ago, the 2016 bond, and then preparing for the 2017 bond. So I'm asking Mr. Valdez to come up and speak to those issues.
Thank you, Dr. Fields, and good evening, Dr. Montoya and board. Let me introduce my staff. You have an organizational chart in your pack. We have a permanent staff is Ruben Moreno. He's our project manager. And then we have Armand Cataltipit. He's our designer. We also have 3 additional bond staff that are funded through the 2016 bond. We have an additional construction project manager, a construction inspector, and a secretary. They're not present today, but that's part of our team. Briefly, I'd like to review some of the major items that the facilities department personnel are currently working on. As Dr. Fields mentioned, as a result of the major hailstorm that occurred a year ago, We, along with other departments, have been working to coordinate with the insurance carrier to repair the impacted facilities. A roofing consultant has been hired to do a complete assessment and to generate the blueprints, and that phase has been completed. Early in the process, the critical roofs received repairs, and air conditioning equipment was replaced in order to keep the facilities in operation. This month, we received bids for Elof, Hopkins, Park Village, Pushal, Masters, and Wagner High School. These were deemed to be the most critical roofs, and with your approval at the next board meeting, construction is planned to start this summer for these facilities. To date, we have bid 7 of the 22 effective buildings, and we're currently working on the next round of roofs. Again, in your board packet, you have the monthly construction report, the preliminary facility assessment, and info on Phase 2 for Veterans High School. And as well, those are part of our duties. In general, the monthly construction report focuses mainly on the 2016 bond program. The voters provided $214 million as part of that package. It includes 2 new elementaries, which will relieve overcrowding conditions, provides for modernization and improvements at existing schools, and keeps our roofing replacement program current. The report that you have goes into detail, and I won't belabor the point. You guys receive those every month. So at this time, I'd like to thank you and ask if you have any questions.
On our facilities like, that have that poor rating condition on the buildings, like the police
Yes, sir.
office building and the, which one of the ones, the ERC building, you know, what are the plans?
The long-term plans for those would be to coordinate with the administration and possibly fund those through another bond down the road. The 2016 bond didn't have any provisions for any, basically, most of the administration buildings, so there are some needed repairs that need to happen. But that's one way to repair those.
Where are they in comparison to fair? You know, I see fair, poor, good, you know.
How did,
Yeah.
I want to know, yeah, because my question is that, how did you constitute
Yeah.
these identifiers? How did you, these conditions? How do you go about?
We're using our professional judgment based on construction, and we also included what the condition would be after the 2016 bond would be completed.
So you don't have a scale? It's just eyeballing?
We're familiar with the buildings, so this is a preliminary assessment. We can hire an architect to do a complete assessment once as we move through it. So that would be a plan.
If
for
I could
down the road.
add, these building condition assessments were brought about by the board's request for us to go out and assess where our buildings were. So they took a comprehensive look based on previous work orders and needs of that campus, knowing that we were going to have to go forward at some point, and where we could identify where those needs are the strongest at this point. And if you were to look at the ERC, and if you were to ask around, and if you were to look at the work orders, you would see that the ERC, Transportation, and Police Department are those buildings in our districts that need the most immediate help after the $214 million infrastructure improvements.
Maybe so. You're probably very correct,
Yes, ma'am.
but you need a rubric. If we're going to be looking at this, I want to see a rubric that constitutes good, fair, excellent, poor.
Understood.
And to follow up on Ms. Bashal, I had a similar question too, because I did receive some information from parents at Converse Elementary. And of course, looking at the assessment for Converse, it says good, But the parents were angry because when you peeled back the wall, you saw cracks coming from the ceiling to the floor. And they were a little discouraged. They said, what's going on with our facility? So the assessment that Ms. Pashala is mentioning is, we're real subjective. We need really, I won't say professional, because we're all professionals, but we need, I guess, an independent assessment on what our facilities are looking like so that we can really know where we need to prioritize. Because I didn't even, and all the times of walking Converse Elementary, never knew there were cracks. The cracks may be inconsequential, but we don't know that. And when a parent sees it and they say, hey, what's going on, and you want us to pass a bond, that stuff kind of hits. And so we need to know that our facilities are sound. And so I don't know if that means acquiring, like in HR, we always have to do compensation studies. So there has to be a study, a process in which we're bringing someone in to do that type of assessment so that we can kind of see where we are.
That's more or less to set the base, and that way we can, you know.
We're perfectly fine with contracting a company to come in and do an assessment and give a rubric of what they looked at on each one and come back. But again, this wasn't based on what the facilities look like now. It was based on after we provided the 200 or the 125 million of infrastructure improvements that are going to come to each of those campuses. Once we do those changes, then the condition of those buildings would change.
Yeah, and the reason I mentioned it too is because Converse isn't in the list, I don't think, in terms of what we're going to hit, unless I missed it. But
Understood.
I understand what you're saying as well.
Who was on the committee to rate the buildings? Or who rated the buildings? I'm sorry, maybe I missed that.
It was Mr. Valdez, Ruben Moreno, and myself, and Armand. There are facilities planning, the architects. We didn't contract out with any outside.
And it was just a
company.
matter of walking around the building?
Correct, and Mr. Yocklin as well. And it was based on previous work orders, the condition of the building, our knowledge of the buildings, having worked with them for so long, and knowing what it is that we're going to do to those buildings with 125 million infrastructure.
Do you put, you know, you say the work order, do you put the dollar value assessed to, you know, okay, let's say it needs have the work order to replace part of the walls or something, you know, there's a dollar amount to that we can.
Definitely. Yes, sir, we do. And that's calculated and tracked to where if we see that we're spending money after preparing, let's say, a chiller, then we know that, okay, now it's time to move forward and replace that. Exactly, exactly. And that's why you'll see that those Kitty Hawk and Kirby got pretty good rankings because we're going to do $26 million of infrastructure improvements.
Well, Kitty Hawk says fair and Kirby says good. But, and then Woodlake Hills, what have they had redone besides their cafeteria since 1996?
Since 1996?
Well, that's when they opened.
The current 2016 bond requires that we're going to do a new track. We're going to put up new retention walls. We're going to redo the,
Right.
the tennis courts. We're redoing.
Right, but my question is how did that get
The
good
roof.
and then Kitty Hawk got fair? When Kitty Hawk has had more upgrades than Woodlake Hills.
Kitty Hawk has several buildings that are
That are going
Yeah,
to stay.
that's true.
60s.
I'm sorry?
Kitty Hawk has several buildings that are very old and
Right, so
built
does
in the
Kirby.
60s.
I think Kirby's are older.
But with the
We're going to
20
tear most of the Kirby
with the
buildings down.
with the $26 million of infrastructure improvements at Kirby, we're going to replace the buildings.
I
At
understand
Kitty
what's
Hawk, we're gonna
going to
put-
happen.
Yeah, you're talking
My-
about going to.
My question is fair and good.
Yeah.
The reason why Kitty Hawk will be fair is because there'll still be buildings left after we do the infrastructure improvements. At Kirby, there will be no old buildings left. We're going to replace them all.
Most of
They're giving
An estimate,
according to what they're going to
Correct, they're predicting.
do. Yes, instead of telling us about what's current.
But we wouldn't go in and knock down the old academic buildings at Kitty Hawk because they're newer. The library was newer.
What you're saying is they just went in there, kind of covered it all over instead of fixing it, right?
No, sir, I'm not, I'm sorry, I'm not
I
understanding
think
what
the
you're asking.
confusion is, you say building conditions and you're really wanting to say future building conditions.
That's,
or projected
I'm
building.
sorry, I thought
Right,
that's what I was
think that's the
implying.
confusion that I
I'm saying
had.
future building
You mean
conditions.
projected building
Correct.
conditions after the bond.
But that's, yes, ma'am.
That helps. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Okay, so after all of those things, then these will have these conditions.
Right.
I think they work backwards.
Yes. If you don't mind, I'd like for Mr. Yoklin to come up and give specific numbers. I would tell you that while he comes up, at Wagner, when you went through the school, the foot candle was like at 15%. But when we changed those to LED lightings and the light fixtures across the roofs, literally, it was like the lights came on. So you can, and the foot candle is up to more like 40 to 45%. So the eye quality is a lot better since we put those in. The bulbs aren't the old 125 watts, they're LED watts, and we'll get a rebate back from those. So it was an excellent expenditure, but if you could answer the question of how
Okay,
much.
what was the question, sir?
How much we get in terms of rebates for the lighting retrofits.
I don't have the exact number, but I know that David Ayler did get a rebate for the lighting at Wagner that we put in. I don't know the exact amount.
We'd have to get back.
No, we have an
We have
exact
it
amount.
projected.
He's already sent it into CPS, and they'd give an amount.
I don't think that was the question.
What was the question?
Would you rephrase your question, please, Mr. LaFleur? Would you please rephrase the question?
How much are we saving by doing this?
Well, if we're going to put LED in the classrooms, which is producing a lot of savings, it's going to reduce the cost by 2/3 of power consumption in the school, so you're going to get power consumption. Plus, CPS is going to give you a rebate. They are predicting those fixtures to last, and nobody really knows right now because 22 years hasn't gone by, but they are predicting anywhere from a 15 to a 20-year lasting on the bulbs, so therefore, we're not putting labor into going throughout the school changing the bulbs. The old fixtures that were there, the bulbs were very expensive. They generated a lot of heat, so it actually cost to the cooling system to the building, and the power consumption was great high. So all around, it reduces, in many ways, costs that go into the school, just by going to a LED bulb.
Mr. LaFleur, I know that Mr. Ayler, and they don't have the information right now, obviously, but Mr. Ayler can give you, or give us to send y'all, the information of the cost savings based on, they knew how much we were spending with the old bulbs that we had, and they know how much of a savings there is with the new bulbs. So they can take the amount of money we were spending, apply a factor to it, and say, okay, we were spending, for example, $200,000 over the year at this particular campus. Now with the new bulbs, we're going to be spending $50,000, for example. But we can get you that numbers. We just don't have it. I know, we just don't have that right now. But Mr. Ayler can get them the numbers.
They were spending $90,000 over about a 3-month period, and now it's dropped down to about half. So I just thought maybe putting it in there, you would know by now that how much we're paying.
Yes, we haven't, but David does. He has an example based on the power consumption, what the savings would be based on the LED bulbs, based on what we had before.
And doing solar.
I know David's speaking with an individual on the solar for the district. I don't know really quite where he is on bringing solar into the district, but.
I think Gilbert brought it up at the last board meeting, that we got perfect roofs. And, well, with Park Village and Mary Harbor, we have open fields there that we could put a bank of them in there.
I do know he is looking at solar currently.
Thank you.
Dr. Fields,
ma'am.
earlier in the school year, when I had concerns about schools that were falling apart, and I brought my illustrations.
I remember.
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
I asked the question to Mr. Valdez, how often inspections are done. So how are inspections being done now? Has there been any change? Is there a schedule of how, for example, when these projects get complete? I think I heard Mr. Valdez mention that there's someone on the team that does inspections.
Yes, ma'am.
And is that after the project has been complete?
We have Joe Furlong, he's our construction project inspector. He's on, he goes basically once a week, at least once a week, if not daily, depending on how many projects we have. So,
Based on your inquiry, we also went back and spoke to principals as well as head custodians and reinforced that because they're there every day, we need feedback. If they see something that's falling apart, we need them to put in a work order for that. If they see a brick that comes off the wall, we need to know about that. Because we don't visit each campus every day, if they would let us know when those things happen, then we could come out and then support them in that capacity. We also talked to our maintenance department and said that you guys are out there changing HVAC filters, you're out there painting, you're out there cutting the grass. We would ask you to walk around and survey those areas as well, and then get back with us and let us know if there's issues going on on the campus. But we had a big kumbaya afterwards and said everybody needs to be involved in this inspection process routine.
Okay.
Yes,
So, in the future, you have some kind of documentation so that if any one of us said, hey, has this school been inspected lately, you'll have something to say.
Definitely.
Yep,
We'll have people who went by and came back and gave us feedback, and we'll say that we talked to principals as well as head custodians. Yes, ma'am. That completes the program review. If there's, yes, ma'am?
I'm sorry, there's one more.
Oh, you got one more? Go ahead.
Page 236. I think that says 230. No, it can't be 236.
36.
It's a page that it talks about the PAC is having carpet replacement.
Yes, ma'am. That was part of the 2016 bond. If you were to go over there now, all of that carpet has been replaced. It looks excellent all throughout.
How often does that have to happen? Well, I guess what I want to know is it better to replace with carpet versus some other type of flooring?
Even
Tile?
if you were to go in the pack, the carpet that was replaced, and Mr. Youngklin, you need to come back up again. Yeah, it's my recollection that if you look in between the aisleways, that's still polished concrete. But if you look up and down the aisleways and around, that's the carpet that we replaced, in addition to in the smaller auditorium, as well as some of the support areas, choir, and all the other stuff.
So is that the first time that carpet's been replaced in this?
To my knowledge, yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, that's not too bad.
No.
So this will last for a while?
Yes,
Oh,
ma'am.
yes,
Another-
Yes, we spec out pretty high quality. It's a high traffic area, so we will.
Jose, I'm sorry, have to go back. How old is the back?
Victor probably knows better than I do.
It was 98?
1999.
1999.
I hope we
Wow,
buy the
that's
same
17.
carpet if it lasts too long. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I noticed that Rutledge Stadium parking lot is on the thing to be done this year. Will it be done before football season?
We just got the proposals, and we're working right now on the contract. So our plan is for it to be phased. So the front part of the parking lot will be done. We have 60 days to do that. So we're going to try our best, but that's phased for 2 months. It's 3 phases. So we have the front of the stadium, and then the in front of the gymnasium at the Judson High School, and then the last phase would be on Rocket Lane. So,
Because it's a beautiful stadium and the parking lot makes it look like a dump.
yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Are we putting there in the stadium, is it possible to do an area just for the buses park that's concrete? Because it's the buses that tear everything up, the heavy vehicles,
The issue with the parking lot, Mr. Flores, is that when it was put down, the paving was taken care of, but we didn't go deep to stop some of the shifting and movement underneath. This time, the improvement will be digging it up, going down 4 feet. Am I correct? How long?
15 inches.
15 inches,
Yes,
sorry,
sir.
just 15
will that
inches.
do it?
Yes, sir. We have, it's based on science. We took geotech borings, and we're coming back with fill and 3 inches of heavy-duty asphalt.
Well, because we know all the land down here and
Exactly,
this part of
especially on
the
that side of the
district
We're
is
following
just,
TxDOT standards. It's all scientific. Right now, it's like Dr. Field says, there's hardly any base there. That's why it doesn't stand up.
So that should improve the stability of the pavement all the way around. But as you recommended in the last board meeting, we still won't have 18-wheelers or buses driving through the entire parking lot.
Right.
Those will be shifted over to the side where they typically park when teams come to visit or when our
Right.
buses go to park.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
We'll move on to item number 5, consider of consent items. 5A, consider and take action regarding approving a letter of understanding with National Inventors Hall of Fame, Inc.
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Flores, second, Mr. LaFoille. Any discussion? Oh, Mr. Macias.
Yes, during the week, I've had some discussions with Ms. Hernandez regarding this program, and I had some reservations about the program, but obviously not the program. It's a good quality program, don't get me wrong with that. The concerns I just had were our evaluation of the program and what its return on our investment has been. In addition to that, additional concerns were about alignment, and I know this program aligns quite well with our STEM, so I don't have too many concerns about that, but the idea is that when we spend title funds, are we evaluating the program rigorously enough to know if there's any other programs that could help our students? And so, that being said, my takeaway from the conversation with Ms. Hernandez was, yes, we will be evaluating programs as we move forward to see if there's something that's going to help. And of course, that's based on metrics moving forward, having metrics and to validate the expense and the involvement of the program. So I just want to say I'm very confident in moving forward in that way, and thank you, Mr. Hernandez, for taking some time to go through that. So I just wanted to make that clear for my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you. How long have we had this program?
Since 2013.
2013. This is the first time that I have seen data. First
Yeah.
time.
Fantastic.
Ms. Hernandez put this out for us also. I mean, when I looked at this, I said, my God, I didn't even know. And I've been here since 2009. So this is what we need when they come and say, hey, we want some monies for this or whatever, and this is perfect.
It is.
And I appreciate that to you, Ms. Barra, and all the staff, because now we can see, we can read here, we can look at the data before and after, and how is it going. Thank you very much, Dr. Montoya, for getting this going. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, members of the board, and Dr. Montoya. Yes, sir.
I do want to add, though, that part of the expectation is we would have student performance metrics. So in addition to program metrics, we're starting to evaluate participation of students in the program to determine if it's helping in the classroom. And that's sort of the added information that we should be tracking and evaluating. So I think it's going to be phenomenal.
I thought they gave us part of that information when they were, what, fifth graders or fourth graders or something, that there was an increase. Okay, during these, how long does it last, 4 weeks?
A couple of weeks.
Oh, a couple of
Yeah,
weeks.
yes.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. And our meeting is adjourned at 8:10.